very strong winds blowing across the lake that the water is going to pile up on one side of the lake and may breach the levee. We do not think that's going to happen. We don't have any reason to believe that's going to happen, but we got a report from the National Hurricane Center indicating that Myakka, along the eastern shore of the lake, right over in this area, is reporting 85-mile-an-hour winds at 1 a.m. And there are sensors, monitoring stations actually out in the middle of the lake, and one of those was reporting 84 miles an hour out there. So significant winds blowing on the lake, and 71-mile-an-hour winds reported on the western shore of the lake over there. So certainly a lot of wind blowing on the lake, and the sensors on the south part of the lake where you would expect the water to pile up, they're indicating right now at least a 3-foot storm surge going on Lake Okeechobee, but the levee there extends up to 30 feet, and the lake level was running around 13 feet, so we're only talking right now about a 16-foot lake level there, and the forecast maximum height is only expected to be near 20 feet. So we're thinking that the lake is going to be in good shape as the storm continues to move inland. Now, for the folks down in West Palm Beach County watching us on TVX 34, you're going to be under the gun for quite some time, because you're in the southern part of this eye wall here, these very heavy spiraling areas, and the eye wall itself is going to continue to rotate over your area, so just stay hunkered down. It's going to be some time before this exits the area. Let's zoom out a little bit, and you can see kind of the scope of Frances here, and measuring from about where we are here in South Florida out to these far eastern rain bands, that's about 140 miles. And our latest report is that Frances is moving inland to the west-northwest at about 7 miles. And if you do the math, that is about 20 hours that we potentially could be dealing with these squalls, as we're only through about half of the storm. So consider that we are only about halfway through. At least 20 more hours of these heavy squalls, though the wind will start to die down. There could be very gusty winds in these squalls as Frances continues to move on land, and certainly now as these heavier rain bands start to work their way inland, the flood threat is going to start to increase, and a flood watch is in effect. Here is the radar in motion since about 7:12 p.m. this evening, and a couple of things to point out. You can see the eye here, and early on, the center of the storm not moving too much, but as we go towards the end of the loop, you'll notice that all of a sudden it starts to scoot inland a little bit faster, and that's certainly good news. There it is, just sitting there, drifting, and right here at the end, you'll see there it goes. It looks like it kind of shifts all of a sudden, starts moving, maybe got a little kick from a little disturbance in the atmosphere or something, but certainly good news to see it start to move. You can also kind of make it out here on the satellite loop. There is the center right there, and right towards the end of that loop, you kind of get the general sense that it is starting to move inland at least a little bit more speed. Our earlier advisory only had it moving at 4. It's moving at 7, so it's almost doubled its speed going inland. Here was the 1 a.m. advisory, the 27.2 north, 80.2 west, 105-mile-an-hour winds, and there's that all-important 7 number moving west-northwest at 7 near Stuart, Florida, and the future track through tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon continues to take Frances inland, and then by tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening time frame, somewhere here on Florida's west coast. But once again, remember, there are these bands, kind of this tail that we like to call it, sticking out on the east side, the dirty side of the storm, that we will continue to see through tomorrow. And beyond that, Frances moves to the northwest, affecting the Florida Panhandle, and could be a huge rainmaker for parts of the southeast U.S. as Frances continues to move up there, taking all that tropical moisture with it. So could not be a wind event, but a rain event for the southeast U.S. A quick mention once again, if you've been following our latest tropical system out there of what seems like has been a relentless series of them, Ivan winds at 70 miles an hour, and the future track on Ivan taking Ivan to the west-northwest through the next several days. It just seems like it is not going to end, and we are just into early September, so we're hoping things will quiet down here sooner or later. Ladies, back to you.
Hey, Craig, I have to ask if we could look at Frances once again. We'll keep talking about the eye of the storm, and I remember yesterday when we were talking to the National Hurricane Center, it had been downgraded a bit, and we were told then that there was really no eye left anymore as we know it. Something had happened to it. I don't know, maybe you can explain. So what we're looking at now, we keep talking about the eye of the storm making landfall. Is that a true eye, or is that just what we're calling the center of the storm at this point?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a combination of both. What had happened was, when Francis got over here in the Bahamas, there was some upper-level wind blowing on it, and it kind of pulled Francis apart, so it didn't have a true eye. It kind of had this kind of half-circle, kind of chunky-looking thing out there, and it was what they would call open, so to the south. So you're kind of looking at a half circle, or kind of a half of a feature, and Francis got very wide at that point. And then through the day to day, as we watched it, Francis was able to kind of pull thunderstorms around, pull them around, until finally Francis got thunderstorms all the way around the center, and you can see from the appearance now there are thunderstorms and rain squalls and bands all the way around the center. I say thunderstorms. There's no lightning being reported with Francis, but I guess you would call them thunderstorms because they're convective clouds. But it's pulled it all the way around. So technically it once again is an eye. So Francis kind of stalled out here. Once the shear decreased, then Francis was able to get its act back together again and have an eye.
All righty, Craig, we appreciate it as always. Thank you. And if we can keep that picture up, because what we'd like to do right now is take you out to Stewart, where we have a Herald reporter, Erica Bolstad, standing by on the phone. And Erica, looking at this eye, which you can't see, but we can tell you, it appears that you are in what Craig was loosely describing as the eye of the storm. So it should be pretty calm there right now for you?
Yeah, it is very calm right now. Just very light rain and light winds. It's just dramatic how much quieter it is than it was when the storm first came through.
What was it like when that storm first came through?
Well, it really was a strange process because it had been windy all day, and it really just felt like it just started to intensify around 7 o'clock, and then by the half hour it just seemed to intensify more and more. I took shelter in my hotel room for the height of the storm, and it just was this loud roar of wind the entire time. That's all you could hear.
Well, here's the interesting thing. If we can bring Craig Setzer back in. Craig, as you can see, she's right there in that eye. You circled that for her. How long does Erica have and the folks there in Stewart, Fort Pierce, Juneau Beach have before the second half of that storm barrels through?
Erica, the wind started to die down there, about 3 hours ago?
Probably about 2.5 hours. Yeah.
2.5 hours ago. You're right in the middle. You've probably got another hour and a half to 2 hours before the other side comes. And I wish I could tell you that the other side is not as strong as the side you went through, but it is in fact fairly strong. Hopefully, as the center gets more inland, then the whole system will weaken somewhat. But there is quite a bit of squally weather out to your east, so don't, I'm afraid I have to say, don't grow accustomed to the quietness right now. Enjoy it, and maybe you can make whatever damage repairs over the next hour that need to be made before the rest of this storm gets there, because it is certainly strong over the Atlantic right now, and it's moving your way, and you've probably got an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours before the winds start to build again and things go down.
Erica, this is Susan Barnett. I wanted to ask, describe for us from your vantage point, what are you seeing there in terms of damage that's been done? Down power lines, damage to buildings, homes, flooding. Describe for us what you're seeing around you.
Well, I'm on US 1, a little bit west of downtown, and here we drove a little bit around during the eye. We're back in our hotel now, but there are traffic lights down everywhere. There's pieces of sheet metal roofing on the street everywhere. There's trees down on the street, which is in some places a 6-lane highway. And you see lots of damages to businesses. I'm not in a residential area, so I haven't seen what has happened there, but definitely there's roofs peeled off of parts of a hotel down the street, and lots of businesses have sustained some pretty serious damage.
The other interesting thing is that from what we're hearing and some of the reports that we're getting from Stewart specifically, Erica, is that roads and the streets and beaches were mostly deserted, but that there are still a couple of folks out there even at this particular hour, and it's just crazy to even imagine that. And I guess it's because perhaps that eye is there and they feel like, whew, I have a chance to breathe, but it's crazy to imagine that there would even be one person who would even go outside for any reason whatsoever.
Well, yeah, I did hear from one of my colleagues who works for another newspaper that he interviewed someone who was actually trying to weather the storm on a boat, which seems like an incredibly stupid idea. And I also heard just now, I checked in with the Emergency Operations Center, and they're using this quiet period right now to evacuate a portion of one of the shelters here in Stewart.
It's interesting you mentioned that about the boat. This is Danielle again, Erica. One of the reports that I heard was that a U.S. Coast Guard helicopter actually had to rescue a man and his cat who were trying to ride out this storm on a sailboat, of all things. So it's just interesting to know that for the most part, people did heed the warnings to get out and get to safer ground, but here's this guy on a boat with his cat trying to weather this storm, and obviously Mother Nature is much stronger than a tiny sailboat out on the bay.
Oh yeah, and I think that those people who thought that they were safe in the shelter here in Stewart, are probably feeling the same way. I think what happened there, we're hearing reports that part of their roof peeled off, and they got about 2 to 4 inches of rain inside about 16 of the rooms there, and so people are being evacuated to a shelter right next door.
I just want to interrupt for a second to let you know that the pictures that you're seeing on our screen right now, wow, we just saw a piece of debris flying through the screen there. You're looking at rain coming down. This is Sunny Isles Beach. You're looking at rain coming down on a diagonal direction, trees blowing, but we did just see a piece of debris flying through, and we're talking to Erica, Herald reporter. She is in Stewart, but we're looking at pictures here from Sunny Isles Beach.
Erica, one of the other things I wanted to know if you had heard anything about, one of the things we've been mentioning all evening long is that most folks are heeding the warnings and they're staying home, but we're hearing some reports of looting. We'd heard that there were some guys who were charged with looting for trying to break into a church up in that area. Had you heard anything about that?
I think that's a little bit further north from here, and that was either earlier in the day today, I believe. And, down here in Stewart, it's been really quiet since last night. They had a curfew that went into effect at 8 o'clock last night, and they cut off sales of alcohol, and it was hard to even find anything open. I went to a Shell station that was open from about 6 to 11. Well, I guess it's now yesterday, but other than that, this place has been a ghost town for more than 24 hours.
Erica, another question about the shelter there. The people who were evacuated from that shelter, what kind of building were they in? Was it a school, and what kind of building? You said they went right next door because the roof started flying off. What kind of building did they go into?
They went from one elementary school to another I believe it's another elementary school. It's definitely a school. It was only a small portion of the people. Well, it might be. They're not sure how many people exactly evacuated right now, but they did evacuate some of the people from Pinewood Elementary School right next door to a place called Challenger School, which was the county's special needs shelter.
All right, Erica Bolstad from the Miami Herald. We appreciate it, Erica. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And it's interesting as we take a look at those pictures coming out of Sunny Isles Beach, because one of the questions that we'd asked Kim Bocamper was specifically about any debris flying around, because we know that there are a lot of construction projects going on in that particular area. So it'll be interesting to check back in again with Kim in just a little bit to get another assessment from him in terms of what's going on there.
Yeah, because we did just see a piece of debris fly through our picture. Now you're looking at Juno Beach, and it's funny, it looks nice and quiet there on Juno Beach. And our Yusila Ramirez is there. Yusila, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Nice and quiet is right, and you know what? We're taking advantage of that after a couple of hours ago getting hit by the brunt of it. And like I said, we're definitely taking advantage of this weather letting up. I mean, it is still raining. Every now and then we do get that gust of wind, but nothing compared to what we felt here several hours ago. I think back at the station they have some video of what the situation looked like here. I mean, it was just sheets of driving rain that it was relentless. And we were parked underneath the condo here where we're parked for our live shot, and basically inside, the van or the truck where we were sitting was just shaking, because every time you'd get a gust of wind, it was just, it was just unbearable. I had to get out of there actually and jump into our live truck. I felt a lot safer there. So a pretty scary situation here. And imagine we are boxed in the location that we picked. We primarily picked it because of safety first. We wanted to make sure that all our crews were safe, but we were boxed in, and even then you could just feel it, and you could hear it. The wind is just eerie, I can tell you. And after covering a number of hurricanes, this is the first time where you just sit here and it's hour after hour after hour, and it just seems like it's a long and agonizing storm. And the worst part is that it's still not over, and we got to wait for the back end here after the eye moves through. We did have a chance to talk to a police officer who actually made it here to check on the location. They were doing basically drive-bys here on Juno Beach. He tells us as far as damage is concerned, it's not extensive as far as he can tell, other than the downed trees, the downed power lines, which is why they are suggesting that nobody goes out and drives at this time. Although this is an evacuation zone, we don't really expect to see a whole lot of people here in the next couple of days until that is lifted, until the curfew is lifted and they're able to come back in. But basically they're saying they want to keep people off the roads as much as possible. But as far as the damage that they've been able to survey, they say it is not extensive at this point. You figure, though, it's an evacuation zone, and they're really not going to get a good assessment until people start coming home and really checking it out for themselves. Where we're staying here, there's plenty of debris, plenty of downed trees, shingles that were peeled off from the neighboring buildings. But as far as the actual structure, it really fared well.
This is the thing I want
Yes?
to... stand by for just a second. Craig, can we bring you in again?
Sure.
As I'm looking at this map that I have here, Juno Beach is a little further south than Stewart, which is where the eye of the storm is. Describe for us again how big that eye is and what Usilla is experiencing where she is, because she says it's a little calmer now than it was just a little while ago.
Right, yeah. Juno Beach is located right there south of Stewart on the Palm Beach, Martin County line. And you can see the eye wall here. It's got kind of a little ragged there on one side. But Usilla is just about to get into the other side of the eye wall here. The whole eye is moving to the west-northwest. And so these bands here are going to start pushing also with the eye. So Usilla, you've probably got another 30 minutes maximum before these squalls start to come back in. So you guys need to be ready, because what we call the reflectivity gradient. In other words, the difference between no rain and very heavy rain is very, very tight there. So all of a sudden the rain's going to come up, the wind's going to come up, and we have no reason not to believe that right there along the edge of that eye wall that the winds are quite strong and could be even stronger than some of the winds you saw earlier. So you need to be ready for that, because that is moving your way.
And Usilla...
Well, we're definitely standing by.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Usilla. Did you... This is Susan. I just wanted to
we're
ask...
definitely standing...
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, we're looking at a picture right now of it looks like a bunker or a house, and I know that yesterday Dave Malkoff told us that there was a couple staying there. They were going to ride out the storm right there. Of course, that a mandatory evacuation zone there. I just wanted to see if you've heard from them, how they're doing, if they're still there, or if during the worst of this so far, if they decided to evacuate.
Well, yeah, we've been here. We have not left for the past day and a half, and actually we have not. I saw them yesterday walking around before the bad stuff really came through, but since then we haven't really seen them, which is probably a good idea, because officials are advising to not let this, especially right now, it may appear calm, but they don't really want anyone, out wandering, taking a look at any of the damage. So we're assuming that they're okay. Of course, we'll be checking in with them, but I think that's pretty much been the situation. The place was a ghost town yesterday, remains the same today. We expect it to be like this until we get the all clear.
Well, you know what Craig said, you have about a half hour before you get to that other side of the storm. We'll let you take this little time to relax for just a little bit before the other side begins to come to you.
Because certainly we'll be going to her.
We'll be going back to her, under some circumstances that are not quite as pleasant as they are right now. But I think Craig has something to add. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, let me just say one more thing. When the other side of the eye wall gets there, Usilla, and all of our listeners and viewers up there that are getting us on TVX 34, the wind's going to be coming from a different direction. So you almost have to, for those of our reporters that are out there, plan on bracing yourself on a different side of the building, because you've been dealing with a north wind, northwest to north to northeast wind. All of a sudden now you're going to be dealing with a very strong southwest wind, and I know we've got satellite trucks there, we've got live shot microwave masts up and stuff, and you guys need to be ready for that, because it's going to be coming from the opposite direction, basically.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye out for that, although the guys did a great job at basically, like I said before, boxing us in, which is crucial, because although we're feeling a lot of it, when you just go right behind the building, a totally different situation when you go out by the water. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that, but we're trying to stay as safe as possible and situate the crews so that we don't put ourselves in harm's way, because even though we are boxed in, we still, we've seen our fair share of flying debris in this area, so it's touch and go.
All right, Yusila Ramirez, thanks. Yusila, go take a break there before the worst of or more bad weather comes to you. We're going to go to Jennifer Donnellan now.
Jennifer, go ahead. Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
We talked to you just about a half an hour ago, and you were in some flooding, but it looks like there's even a little bit more than I saw when I was with you last time. Did you change locations? Within that same apartment complex.
Yeah, we are still in the same parking lot right now, and we're still seeing the same amount of flooding. And again, it's difficult to tell what's causing the problem, but it does look like it wraps around into the other parking lot. I don't know if something's backed up, or if this is basically a result of all of the rainfall that we've seen. Kind of scary to think that the back end of the storm we're going to see even heavier rain. Danielle, Susan?
Jennifer, I see a lot of cars in the parking lot where you are. First, is that a mandatory evacuation zone? I would think so if you're right there near the coast. And number two, are those cars with other reporters, or are those people who've decided to ignore the orders to evacuate and ride out the storm?
Not only that, but these are people who are staying here. We are actually the only media crew in the area. We're at the PGA Village, just off the I-95 corridor. And actually, we have a lot of people who evacuated to this area because these condominiums are relatively new. They were built to withstand 145-mile-per-hour winds. One woman told me that she lives in a house on the coastline. She felt better coming here, being in this concrete building. Many people just decided that they felt that if they drove 15 miles inland, that they would be safe from the storm and they wouldn't be bearing the brunt of the 105-mile-per-hour winds. Although I have to tell you, just about an hour ago, we were feeling some very, very strong gusts of winds to where we had to retreat up onto the balcony because it was too dangerous for us to be down here. And at one point, we were out on the golf course, and we were very nervous about our safety out there.
Now, Craig, Port St. Lucie, where Jennifer is just above Stewart and Jensen Beach. And so when can she expect, because she's in the eye as well, right?
That's right. She's in the center of the eye. Jennifer, I'm sure your winds are very light there right now, and it's actually probably not a bad evening if you weren't in the middle of a hurricane.
That's right. We were wondering about that because we were able to get some power off our generator into our room. And so we've been actually watching you on television. And we were wondering because it has calmed down. Now, we're still seeing some wind, so we weren't quite sure if we were in the center of the storm. But we are very nervous about what's coming up behind us, this larger portion of the storm with the stronger winds and the heavier rain. It's really hard to believe that these folks who are in these houses, in these condominiums behind me, have basically a whole another day and evening to live through what may be even worse weather.
Yeah, well, we're thinking right now, based on what we're looking at now, Port St. Lucie, for our viewers that are still watching us, is kind of right in that area there, just to the north of Stewart, south of Fort Pierce, almost in the center of this rain-free area here. But as you can see, a pretty ferocious eastern eye wall there is continuing to come together. That is moving to the west about 7 miles an hour. So folks in Port St. Lucie, and including you, Jennifer, you've probably got about 2 hours maximum before this other side gets here. Now, the winds have been fairly strong inside the eye too, but they will build and then increase very rapidly as this other wall gets there in about 2 hours. So it's going to be a very, very unsettling early Sunday morning, about 3-4 a.m.
Craig,
that is not good news to hear.
Unfortunately.
To tell everybody here.
You're kind of stuck there, huh, Jennifer?
Yeah, we are stuck here.
And Craig, I just wanted to ask you, there in Port St. Lucie, is that, or I don't know, or I don't think that's one of the areas that will get the upper end of the scale as far as rainfall, or is it?
Yeah, they're going to get pretty significant rainfall, and I was even going to ask Jennifer if she was standing in freshwater or saltwater, but I didn't want her to reach down and taste it. But I think that was just rainfall from this front side of the storm there, kind of in the parking lot. The real areas of concern are Palm Beach County and also up in Indian River County and St. Lucie County, northern St. Lucie County, where the eye wall, they're not going to get a break from it. They're not going to see the eye. They're just seeing more eye wall up to the north and a lot of eye wall down to the south. So these two areas, and in fact, I can change radar sources here and kind of show you what we're looking at. This is rain estimates, and you can see Palm Beach there West Palm Beach on the rain estimates. Very heavy rain here, better than 2 inches an hour, so significant rainfall falling there. So, and you can see here's the Stewart area up there, not getting rain right now, and we can even look at what's called storm total product, and you can kind of see, well, you can't see it that well with that product. Let me try one other one here, a 3-hour storm total, and you can almost make out this band of heavy rain on the south, bands of heavy rain in the north, and then this drier spot coming there. So, so certainly something that those folks in Palm Beach and areas to the north, northern St. Lucie and Indian River County, are going to have to watch out for.
I tell you what, Craig, it's just amazing when you look and you see that this is the proverbial calm before the storm, because when you see all that yellow and green on the other side, it's absolutely amazing to think that these folks still have so much more to go through before this storm is over. You're taking a look right now at some pictures, live pictures, coming out of Sunny Isles Beach, talking about folks still going through it. And we've got Ken Bocamper, who is there taking shelter, we believe, but the winds have been blowing there pretty good as well. And the interesting thing about Sunny Isles Beach is that is a lot further south than where the major part of that storm is hitting. But he's experiencing a lot of weather, and he told us about the fact that he's kind of in an area that he thinks is pretty well protected, because he has a hotel on one side of him, he has a wall with a lot of trees on the other side, but it's just so windy and so rainy there that it's very, very difficult even for him to stand up.
And I think it's interesting to see, too, you always hear about in hurricanes people talking about it raining sideways, and right here you can really see the rain just going horizontally across your screen, just a testament to the force of the wind there. Again, Sunny Isles Beach right there.
Let's take you up now to Fort Lauderdale Beach, where CBS 4's Shamari Stone is standing by live there. Shamari.
Hi, Susan and Danielle. Good morning. First of all, by the way, we can do questions and answers. I can hear you on this phone. I'm now going to put it in my pocket, but if you have any questions after I finish what I have to say, go right ahead. We're here on Fort Lauderdale Beach, and we're directly parallel to A1A near the 17th Street Causeway. And right now there's a light drizzle, but that could change any second. The gusty wind could come in and out. Now what's interesting is that we're seeing sporadic flashes of lightning. And after I toss back to you, it'd be great if Craig Setzer could explain why there's this lightning, and also what does it have to do with Hurricane Francis. Let's take a walk right now, and there are massive power outages out here, but if you look at this Radisson Hotel where we're staying, there is electricity. Now, if you went down a block to the Doubletree Hotel, there's no electricity. Now, my photographer Joaquin Garcia and I, we ventured out and saw the areas, the debris, the fallen ficus tree, and see, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about, the gusty winds right there. There was a lot of sand on A1A, and we actually got stuck in this Ford Explorer right here. We got stuck and we had to push it out. How often does that happen on A1A? Now let's continue to walk, Susan and Danielle, to this gateway where it's calm because we're protected by these walls. Let me get these wires out of here. We're protected by these walls. Lo and behold, I come across this man. His name is Bruce Drysdale. Just come over here for a second so I can set the scene and explain what role you have to play with what I'm about to say. If you look right over here, you can see all these boats. I walked down this pier and I said, oh, there's no boat, these boats are empty, all the lights are off. All of a sudden, I come across Bruce Drysdale's boat. I see the lights on, and lo and behold, I see you walking in there. I was absolutely shocked to see you. Why are you out here?
Well, I'm responsible for the boat, and I have to take care of the lines to keep it tied to the dock. The lines are stretchy and wet. They get more stretchy, and it being a floating dock is a bonus. All I have to do is keep the lines tight, and I'm sure that we could withstand 100-mile-an-hour winds. A lot of people have put their boats here and haven't tended to their lines. Earlier this evening, actually this afternoon, we were having one of the boats at the end of the dock here break free and actually broke it.
Hold on, Bruce. That gusty wind just came right through here. Okay, continue talking.
So even at the minor winds that we had this afternoon, some of the boats weren't tied up properly, and the constant jerking of the ropes on the cleats caused this cleat to actually snap off. Wow. Setting the boat free.
Why don't you first explain what that is? It looks like an elephant tusk, but what is it?
Well, actually, it's the cleat is what is attached to the dock, which attaches a rope from the dock to the boat. And that's the only thing you got to hold your boat in place. As a result of this breaking, one of the boats, large one, just down there.
That's a big yacht, $1 million yacht right there.
Multi-million-dollar yacht, that one. And as a result, it started to heave to the right. That would be starboard, but to the right. And it only had one more line left on it, preventing it from actually crashing in to the pier next to it, which would have certainly punctured the hull and sunk the boat here in the marina.
Well, Bruce, I've talked to you before throughout the night, and you know how I feel. I personally believe that you need to be in the hotel where it is safe, but obviously you're an experienced captain. You know what you're doing, and all I can tell you is to be safe. Earlier we found a surfer, and he believed he had the constitutional right to surf. I guess you think you have the constitutional right to be in your boat, so just be safe in there, all right? Can you do that for us?
I will.
All right. Bruce Drysdale, he's weathering the storm, and as you can see, we're protected by these walls. This is a gateway introducing people to the pier, but as you see, if I just step out a little bit, the wind is very, very strong, sometimes 50, sometimes up to 80 miles per hour. Now what I'm going to do right now is take this phone, and hopefully you all are still there. Can you all hear me?
Shamari, we can hear you.
Okay, there we go. You got some questions? Go right ahead.
Yeah, well, actually, I wanted to put your question that you had earlier to Craig Setzer. I wondered the same thing. Craig, we've been seeing these flashes in the sky that we believe to, or we've been led to believe are transformers or wires clapping together. How do we know it's not lightning?
Well,
Hard to hear. That's it.
we've got on real-time Doppler 4 here, Shamari, I've got an answer to your question about the lightning. We've got lightning detection turned on also, so let me turn off the radar, and those are the lightning bolts from the thunderstorms out there. So what we see is some cluster down here between Andros and South Florida, a little lightning there and some lightning up here north of the Bahamas, north of Grand Bahama there, but really no lightning cloud-to-ground strikes anywhere in South Florida. So I've got to believe that unless you're seeing lightning that's up in the clouds, you're probably seeing power flashes, because this is a tropical system, and most tropical systems just don't produce a lot of lightning because you need ice in the clouds to produce lightning, and this is a very warm system. We call them warm core systems, and they don't produce much lightning.
So perhaps, Shamari, can you hear us? Shamari, can you hear us?
Yes.
So perhaps what you were seeing is maybe more electricity, more breakers going out, because what Craig is saying, if you heard his answer, is that really where you are, there really is not any lightning at all. So perhaps those flashes of light you were seeing are more electricity going out, because you were saying that you'd be at one hotel and there's electricity, right next door there's no electricity. But the other thing is you're kind of in a little pocket there, so there really would be no way for you to know if in your surrounding areas electricity is on or off.
That's well said. Yes, it could have been a transformer. I know earlier there was a transformer that blew, and I had reported when Ileana Varela and Angela Ray were on the desk where you guys are, and you know that could have been possibly it. But it definitely seemed as though the sky was flashing, and it was very curious. Now, I just have to say this: if you're at home watching this, please don't come out. That guy, Bruce Drysdale, honestly, I don't know what he is doing, because it is dangerous out here. I'm going to put the phone here if you have any more questions.
Shamari, what about any debris? Have you seen any debris flying by due to the winds there?
I have seen some debris, particularly on A1A. I've seen trees, branches, and what's interesting, while Joaquin Garcia, my photographer, and I were driving, we saw some power lines that were very low. That's a concern. Any minute now, that power line could drop. There were puddles out there from the rain, and if that power line dropped in the puddle, obviously you could get electrocuted. Extremely dangerous. My concern is tomorrow, once dawn sets, people want to come out, see what's going on. A power line could be down, someone could step in it, and there you go. We've got some serious problems.
All right, Shamari, and I do want to remind people that Florida Power and Light reporting earlier, some 2 million people statewide without electricity, and 500,000 of those people in Palm Beach County. But since we've gotten that report, we've seen those flashes of light in the
could be even
sky.
higher. Yeah,
right.
that's
We
the
do
thing that I
expect
was
those
thinking.
numbers are going up quite a bit in the past 2 hours, anyway.
Well, as we take you back live to these pictures from Sunny Isles Beach, one of the things that Kim Bocamper, who was on Sunny Isles Beach, was saying is that across the street there's a Publix store, and he could see some lights on there, but it's really hit or miss in terms of who has electricity and who doesn't. I know driving in from Broward earlier in the day, even at that early hour in Broward, it was hit or miss because I didn't have electricity, but there were other people who did, and so I think that's going to be the situation as the night progresses and as we get into the early morning hours, because I think, Susan, that 2 million number is going to increase significantly as the other side, as Craig Setzer has been saying, of this storm comes. And the thing about it is that the other side of the storm, unfortunately, is worse than the side that we've already seen. So in some respects, the worst of this storm is yet to come. So this is not a time for you to become complacent and say, oh, you know, the eye is here, it's almost over. Unfortunately, it's not almost over because the larger side of that storm has yet to pass through our area.
There's a lot more of Francis on the way. And also want to just reiterate the fact that with the power out, traffic lights are out all over the place. So police are recommending that as you approach any intersection that would normally have a traffic light, approach it as a four-way stop. Make sure you stop, make sure you look, and give the right of way, and then go only when it's safe. But keep your eye out, because with it being so dark outside, it's hard to even know when you're coming up on an intersection. Very easy just to fly right through it and not even realize that it's a place where a traffic light would normally be.
Well, that's another thing that's really hit or miss, too, because you'll be driving down a street and you'll see traffic lights that are operable, and then you'll drive to the very next block and just see traffic lights that are not. So again, yeah, that's very good, very well put, that you really have to be careful because you really don't know what to expect or what's going to happen. But at this particular time, if you've been following us for the last couple of days, you know what to expect at the top of every hour, because what we like to do is take you right out to CBS 4 Weather Control and give you a really kind of overview in terms of what's going on with this storm. And Craig's been kind enough to be with us really for this last hour, which we do appreciate, Craig, but we know right now you want to give the folks at home an overview of exactly what's going on with Hurricane Francis.
That's right, and Mr. Bob Soper will be joining us in just a second here. He is getting warming up in the bullpen, as we'd like to put it. Let's show you what's going on. We've got the latest position, the Francis position estimate, and as of 1 a.m., Francis was right over Stewart, was the center, and now is located 7 miles to the west of Stewart. So we're seeing that motion to the west or west-northwest at 7 miles an hour continues. Let's talk about Miami-Dade right now, where things have quieted down a bit, except in the northern sections. As we zoom in here, you'll see that there's a pretty good squall right now. Here is Tamiami Trail. Here is the remnants of that squall that continues to race through the area. So gusty winds continuing. We've seen wind gusts up to 41 miles an hour in the last 2 hours here at CBS 4 in West Miami-Dade, and certainly gusty winds are expected to continue, but the winds overnight will become more and more southwesterly and eventually southerly as Francis continues to move inland. Kind of a break for Broward now. The winds are continuing to blow, but those big squalls we saw just a little while ago have moved out. So now just the southern sections of Broward County under the gun. But if you look to the north here, this is southern Palm Beach County, and that is the southern extent of the eye wall. And eventually that is going to maybe throw off another spiral band, which would affect northern Broward and eventually Miami-Dade also. But looks like right now things are quiet. Here is Palm Beach County, and you can see the eye wall right there. The eye itself is now into northern sections of Palm Beach County, so kind of a break in the action for a while, but southern Palm Beach County also not seeing much rain, but still quite a bit of wind there. And as we continue to pan north and work our way up to the center of the storm, once again reported 7 miles west of Stewart by the Hurricane Center, so a position about right there. You can see pretty quiet in terms of rainfall in the center of the storm, but winds are still rather gusty there. And as we zoom out, and let me get the arrow off there, you can see the scope of Francis right now. And we have great concern, of course, for the folks up here in the northern eye wall. They've been under this eye wall now for some time. That's Indian River County, St. Lucie County, and Martin counties there. But these folks under the gun with this northern eye wall, and there's quite a bit more to come that's out in the Atlantic. Also, the folks in St. Lucie and Indian River counties will be under the gun soon from the eastern side of the eye wall, which right now looks pretty ferocious, and will be rotating around, so it looks like Fort Pierce and areas there, including Port St. Lucie and Stewart, will eventually see the effects of that. Let's zoom way out here and kind of give you a perspective on how big Francis is, and this is only coming from the what we call AMX, which is the Miami Doppler radar. We'll throw a few more radars in here and bring up all the radars, and some of them are running in a tropical mode, so we're not even seeing the full extent. But here is the center of the storm. Here is, from what we can see at least on the radar, the extreme eastern edge of the storm, but it may even extend out farther beyond radar range. But what we're seeing is it's about 140 miles from South Florida onto the east. That's 140 there in that distance, and moving to the west, northwest at about 7 miles, and that works out to be about 20 hours, maybe a little bit less than that now. So 20 hours from now is 10 p.m. Sunday night, 10 p.m. tonight. So we're going to be dealing with these squalls through the morning hours, into the afternoon hours. The winds will be dying down except when the squalls come through, but the squalls are going to bring heavy rainfall, and as you can see, there's even thunderstorms there, so lightning and possibly even some severe weather with those squalls. All right, let's take you to radar in motion since 7:54 p.m., just about 8 p.m. This is just about when Francis started to move after parking out there just to the east of the east coast of Florida, between Grand Bahama and the east coast of Florida. Sat there, spun, kind of got its act together, and then finally started to move to the northwest. And you can see by the end of this loop that it is making a steady inland progress to the northwest there. Finally, most of the eye now onshore, and the thinking would be that as the center of the storm gets more and more onshore, the storm will start to undergo a decaying or weakening phase, and the winds should begin to come down, but certainly until we get the full center onshore, that may not begin, because there are still some very strong squalls just offshore of Palm Beach County and areas to the north. Here's a satellite loop over the last 12 hours. You can clearly make out that west-northwest motion, certainly some good news there, but also you can see that Francis extends well out into the northern Bahamas, and so we've still got to go through a lot of that. Here with the 1 a.m. advisory, let me actually give you the 2 a.m. coordinates, which was 27.2 north and 80, I'm drawing over myself, 27.2, 80.3 west, and that was 7 miles to the west of Stewart, Florida, as of 2 a.m. and continuing to move to the northwest there at 7 miles an hour, and we think that motion will continue. Nothing to slow it down now. I think that's going to take it across the peninsula of Florida through Sunday morning, and by Sunday evening the center should be somewhere near the west coast of Florida, so that those spiral bands on the east will be starting to recede from us, but that's not until tomorrow evening. And then as we go into the Monday morning time frame and beyond, the Panhandle now under tropical storm watches, and eventually we think this is going to be a big rainmaker along this whole track from central Florida up to the northwest there. So that's where things stand this morning. We're still seeing our squalls here in Broward and Miami-Dade County, and it looks like kind of quiet for now. There are some big squalls. Let me go back just for a second here to real-time Doppler 4. And what we're looking at are these squalls on the west coast of Florida, rotating around sometime later on tonight through the early morning hours, reaching us, and that's when the winds will come back up, and we'll see some more of this nasty weather. But we've got a ways to go. We're about a little better than halfway through this.
Well, that's something good. All right, Craig, thank you so much. Sunny Isles Beach now, still seeing some rain and some wind, but it appears to be slowing down. Craig, am I correct? I'm bringing you back in here. Sunny Isles Beach now, it's still a little rainy, but it's not as bad as it had been.
No, it's not as bad, and that squall that Kim was in has diminished quite a bit and moved on off. There's just a little bit of that squall that's left, that spiral band, so things looking better. There's just some rain now, the winds are down, things looking good. And in fact, it looks like there's a kind of a break here through much of Broward County now, and that's going to be working its way eastward, so a little bit quieter for a while before those other squalls on the west coast of Florida get down here in a few hours.
So does it look like Miami's seeing more of it? I can see more activity in Miami.
Yeah, we've got that line right there in northern Miami-Dade right now that is racing off to the east. That's where the heaviest winds are right now, and some showers. But this has even decreased some from what we were seeing earlier, so things quieting down for at least a little while.
Well, we saw those pictures, live pictures from Sunny Isles Beach, and we're going to talk to Kim Bokamper, who is there on the phone. But just in case you're wondering, yes, the voices do sound different. Angela Ray joining me, Ileana Varela, for the next few hours. We'll be with you along with Bob Soper, who's getting ready to go to bat from weather control. Let's see, we have Kim on the phone.
Yeah, Angela, here I am.
Hi, Kim. How's it feeling out there? We can see it's still pretty windy, and you're still getting rain, right?
Still pretty windy. The rain has been continuous. It really hasn't let down at all. At times it's coming back, going across you in a diagonal fashion rather than coming down as a normal rainfall. Well, obviously, that comes with the rain. As you can see, some of the signs and some of the you can see the street signs of the traffic lights out there. The wind is still a bit vigorous out here. It has slowed down quite a bit from what it was earlier, but it is staying continuous. And as I said earlier on the program, it's amazing how this is sustained. Last night we're out, you get a slow down, and then maybe 15 minutes later. But this has just been a continuous onslaught since I've been out here this evening, and it's still rather windy. As you can see, the trees are moving pretty good. We've got some debris from the trees coming off. Some of the branches are beginning to break here. We had a tree a little bit further down the way that's completely broke down. On the other side of the wall, there's a tree that is tipped over. The roots pulled out from the roots by the way through us. It is still substantial, but you can start to feel it easing up a little bit down here on Sunny Isle Beach.
Okay, Kim, thank you so much. We know you've been out there in the thick of it, and it does seem like it's dying down a little bit, so you hang tight, and we'll get back with you a little later on. I know it was kind of difficult to hear him.